We try to control so much around us, but there was no control over that. You know, I mean, that happened, and in such a quick amount of time, boom, it was all gone.
How do you put all this back together again? How do you make it work?
And when I looked at what were my boys' homerooms, had it been a Monday, I wouldn't have my kids.
I know we started in 1927, and I think the development of the school occurred after a tornado, ironically enough.
Originally called Sacred Heart School, Archbishop Neale was started following a series of events in 1926 and the recognition of a need for a Catholic school in southern Maryland. In 1926, educational facilities in La Plata consisted of a public grade school and the McDonough Institute, a private school for higher education. In the fall of 1926, the La Plata grade school was struck and destroyed by a tornado.
On November 9th, 1926, a tornado formed over the Potomac River, came ashore somewhere around Pope's Creek, headed almost due north for a while, roughly following the railroad tracks, a little bit west of the railroad tracks. It hit a farmhouse just on the end of Wills Park, then it crossed over the railroad tracks somewhere, I think around maybe Patuxent Court, hit a house called the Jameson home, and then moved on up. It hit a house that sat where the current Milton M. Summer School is, and then it crossed over Little Valley and hit the La Plata School. The children didn't see it coming. There were 56 in class out of an enrollment of 60, and 13, well actually about 9 were killed immediately, and 4 more died either en route to the hospital or soon after arriving at the hospital. It was a horrible disaster that really affected this town and affected the people in this town for a very, very long time.
Charles County officials decided to replace the demolished school building with a combination grade school and high school in La Plata. As a result of this decision, the trustees of McDonough Institute voted to close the institute and put it up for sale. On April 27th, Archbishop Michael Curley of the Baltimore Archdiocese asked Father Charles Hennessy, pastor of Sacred Heart Church in La Plata, to investigate the purchase of McDonough Institute for use as a Catholic school. The Archdiocese purchased the property, and Father Hennessy made arrangements for the sisters, the servants of the Immaculate Heart of Mary from Scranton, Pennsylvania, to staff the school. Sacred Heart School opened its doors to students on September 6, 1927. By 1951, Sacred Heart School was no longer capable of housing the ever-increasing enrollment, and a decision to build a new school on the same site was made. The school would be given a new name and would open on September 15, 1952, as Archbishop Neale School. The school was named after Archbishop Leonard Neale, the second Archbishop of Baltimore, who was also a native of Port Tobacco in Charles County.
I would describe Archbishop Neale School as a school of family, faith, community, longevity, and centered in Christ.
In 1978, I was asked to come to Archbishop Neale School to be principal. It was only a couple of years after the high school had closed. And they were interesting years. They were years of great growth here for the school. I was privileged, I think, to work with a very good faculty. I had a number of sisters that worked here and a number of wonderful lay teachers who worked, and we built up a strong program here. But they were good and challenging years. I must admit, I enjoyed my time here.
Everybody knows the academics. It's an academic school, wonderfully academic, very spiritual, and very family-oriented because you were treated like family.
So when I went to school here, I started in 1956 in first grade and graduated high school in 1968. My children attended school here, and my grandchildren, some did a few years here as well. I also worked here. So from 1956 roughly to 2015, I had some sort of connection here with the school.
My description of Archbishop Neale School would be that it is a very faith-filled and loving community.
I started at Archbishop Neale School in 1976 as the secretary at the school, but I had 5 boys here at the school, and I thought, what better opportunity to, be where my children are and give to the school. So that's how I started here at A&S. So I was here 32 years.
Some of my fondest memories, I think, working here at the school is just learning that we are a community of faith. We've had some good times. Of course, some of my colleagues have passed away, but just learning families and being part of families and seeing and having those kids who you've taught come back and be so appreciative of what you planted in them as far as either to be good citizens, a strong work ethic, and just being all around good people and lovers of Christ. And having them come back and just say thank you makes my job special every day.
I remember going to A&S and what seemed like a gigantic building to me, where from first grade walking up the hall, up the steps, going down another hall to the center of the school, going up another hallway, which was the high school at that time. It seemed like a monster building to me. And I was amazed that when I came back as a parent here to come to the building and realize it's not such a big building after all.
I have lots of memories of working with the sisters and the lay staff and building it up. And at one point, that whole idea of how do we nurture a faith community, as well as all the high academic standards that we're supposed to live by. I mean, I think that is very, very important to making sure that children were able to produce the best work that they could. Don't just take any old way, take the best way that you can do it. And I think those kinds of standards I saw being developed and lived out in the school community, and I think that was very important.
It's a school that gives you a fantastic foundation in life. Besides your parents teaching you such things, the school here, for me, did the same thing. Your very basic, how you treat people, and that's what A&S has meant to me over the years. And my children have that foundation, my grandkids have that foundation. It's just such a nice feeling to know that that is here in this area and it continues.
Charles County.
Yeah, hi, this is Weather Service.
Yes, we got a tornado reported in La Plata.
Yeah, I was going to say, we picked it up on radar.
Yeah, we're trying to answer as many calls as we can.
I remember it was a Sunday evening and I was living in North Beach. And I remember watching the news that night and hearing about the tornado. I was concerned about our sisters who were here, Sister Jane and Sister Helene in particular, and I tried to get in touch with them. I think later on that evening I found out that they had been here during the tornado. They were in the convent when that whole thing happened, and they had just gotten back from a trip to Scranton, and here they were right when that had happened. And how traumatic that must have been for them to experience that.
And I was at home, and I was on the call list for the alarm company. And we were forever getting calls for silly things like papers falling off the wall and fluttering past the cameras, or the bingo people leaving something open. And so we knew that there were storms around. And I got a call from the alarm company saying the alarm's going off in Brent Hall. And it was like, okay, well, it's probably just, bingo people, something, triggered it. Then I get another call, and they call again saying the alarms are going off in the school. So finally I said to my husband, will you go with me down to the school? I just need to make sure that everything's okay, because the alarm company's already called me a couple times now. So we get in the car and we come, and we could not we had probably about a half a mile away was the closest that we could get. It was after we got onto Route 6 that we realized the devastation, that something major had happened.
Well, I remember my husband and I were in the kitchen and we were cleaning up, and you know how the lights just flicked because we live out in Belle Alton. Didn't think anything of it because everything was just fine. And then shortly after that, maybe about a half hour or so, then I started to get phone calls. And they started to say, did you hear about your school, my school? You know, did you hear about Archbishop Neale School? And I said, no, what? And they said, I think it was, they weren't sure themselves, but they said, I think it was destroyed in the tornado. So then that's the one thing I remember, just that little flickering. And then the next morning, just coming here to see our school and how devastated it was.
My husband, who was a firefighter and paramedic at the time, he's now retired, but he was at work. I was home with my two daughters, and a storm came. We could see it in the clouds, and it came across, because I live in Bryan's Road, and the storm came, and then he was at work, and he called me and said, you know, babe, your school has been devastated. I'm standing right in front of where the convent used to be, and he said that the school is totally devastated. And I'm like, what? He said La Plata has had a massive, massive tornado strike. And it was just, you know, you heard sirens, and it was just a very uneasy feeling of a day. And then to hear that our school was devastated, we saw it on the news, and then, you know, my children were very upset, and we had that phone chain of teachers who were calling around and telling us all the devastating news. And then that morning, we all decided to gather in the front of the school, and we were just in shock of what we saw. The rubble, the building was gone.
It was just devastating what we saw. And I was in a total panic too. And I believe Sister Helene was standing out there on the street. They were just, you know, we had just gotten there, it just happened. And so, you know, we didn't know if we could go in the school or not. I mean, actually, the fire department and the local, you know, police and all, they weren't even on the scene yet. So I told my husband, I said, I have got to get in there and get my computer and get all of the things that I'm going to have to keep everything running, because I was the bookkeeper, secretary and bookkeeper at that time, and I had payroll that week, and it was just like, so we went into the school and we carried out everything that I thought was critical that I was going to need till we could get in and, you know, and get things. So we were kind of tried to get in before they stopped us from getting in.
So the next morning, I got in the car, and here I was. I got down here bright and early, 8 or 9 o'clock, and I was able, actually, I think I parked out on Route 6, but I was able to actually get in the school. There were people still coming in the school at that point. And I remember being in that front hall, looking at the devastation all around me. I remember looking in the chapel, seeing the tabernacle intact, and said, thank you, Lord. I just remember being traumatized by that whole thing. And then eventually law enforcement came and said, you have to get out of this building, it's condemned. So that's when they locked the doors, and I don't think anybody else got in the rest of the day. But I remember that walking through the school and seeing all that devastation.
My thoughts and feelings at the time were what are we going to do? And my boys were in 1st grade and 6th grade at the time. And as I said, as I walked around and saw their classrooms, their 1st grade classrooms, I mean, there were just bricks just piled up on my son's desk. And then the 6th grade, the junior high was pretty destroyed, and the 6th grade homeroom, it was kind of the same thing.
We felt hopeless, I think, because it was just a regular Sunday afternoon. We left our jobs on Friday, left your plan books on your desk, you know, left some personal items on your desk like we do every day. But to come back and have not just those things be gone, but the physical body, that physical, you know, physical school being devastated, it was breathtaking. We were in awe. We were in shock. It was just, yeah. And then the whole town also, as you drive through the town, you know, there was barriers and we were restricted to go in certain parts. It was just like we were in a war. It was, I'll never forget that day.
That was tough to see the building that way. But it's just a building. Thank goodness, thank God, nobody was here at the time. My sisters were in the convent over here, and I know they were frightened to death. And a little bit of the back of the convent, was glazed by all of that, but they survived. So we thank God for that. Yeah.
Why did this happen? Why? Brent Hall, it's gone. I was so familiar with the school and the hallways and everything that happened, all the life that occurred here. It was like that life is no longer there. That's gone. It's going to emerge again in a different way, but as you have known it, it's gone. But what you have to hold on to is the good that happened, the relationships that were built, the learning that was done, the presence of the sisters and the lay staff working together, supportive parents. You have to hold on to those things because the building was gone.
It was pretty devastating. It had been a part of my life since 1976, so that was a lot of years, and it's just like, oh, how do you put all this back together again? How do you, make it work? How do you have to be there for the kids in the community, and this school's been here too long to so, I think we bonded as a faculty with everybody doing what they can and being there for the students, because it was devastating for the students. The students that showed up in the next days out there, the students were just devastated. Everything that they had known, as far as you have to figure 5 days a week, that was their little safety haven, and it was kind of gone.
I don't know. I just was overwhelmed at the whole thing, and just say, why did that happen? God, why'd you let that happen? And in the back of your mind, you have to keep saying, but it's going to be okay. It's going to be okay. Something better is going to emerge from this. And I think just holding on to that hope and knowing that together, people will make this happen and we'll get through it together.
I think that the most amazing thing was the amount of support that the community did give the school, the staff, and all of the different, they were there for everything that we needed or anything that they could do. And I think the community was just there in any way that we needed. We used Sacred Heart. They put temporary classrooms, built them on their property there. The two churches that came together for us to split up and use their, facilities for the students. There was just, I don't think that there was, if we needed something, there was some way, somewhere in the community, in people that reached out to people that have, resources that, that they helped. I don't think that we could have done it just on our own, without the community and without, all that they did.
They never let us down. They never left us alone. We never felt like we were in a sea or island by ourselves. We had so much influx of financial support, material support, food was donated, and it was just an overpouring of just love and just assistance, and whatever we needed, they were there to support and help us every step of the way. And for this town of La Plata, which some people think it's really small, but their hearts are so big because there again, they were also dealing with their own devastations. There were several buildings and businesses and homes that were destroyed just up the street from us. The Methodist Church was devastated. The shopping center beside us was devastated. So the whole town was devastated. So it was like we were building things together, working together as a community team. And it was just, it was a really good place to be in a bad situation.
Oh my goodness. What a great community to be in. To have that kind of support and that kind of help. Folks didn't have to open their doors to us, but they did. And it shows that it doesn't matter what your faith is, what your religion is. I think we all have that same basic, hopefully, feeling for each other, and this community showed that to us.
Just the way the community came together and the things that were done for us. And then there were parents that provided lunch for the teachers till the end of the school year, and lunch for the office, and just help, everywhere. Oh gosh, it was just amazing.
We had several meetings on what we initially had wanted, because there was a building plan, there was a building drive going, because they did want to rebuild the old school. So I look at this building, our new building, as a blessing in disguise, because out of that rubble, because the school was devastated, we were able to get this new building. So again, it was just a blessing.
It was a nice feeling to come into something brand new. It was different. There was some excitement to it, but it was sad to see the old building go, of course, and I have those attachments and those memories. But there are new times and new buildings and new people to continue with all of that.
I remember being in awe, coming in here and seeing this building and walking through it for the first time. I thought, okay, Lord, thank you. Look at this beautiful new facility. But to me, it was like, okay, this is state of the art. It's what we need for our children today. It has happened. I mean, a lot of things had to occur in order to bring it to this point, but here it is. And I looked around at the town and saw how, La Plata was being rebuilt after all that devastation. And it's the dedication and the commitment and the hard work of the people who valued this area and how they made it come alive again.